So, I came across this book on meditation, and it's different. It promises a path that's, and this is a direct quote, free from religion, dogma, and belief. So, right away, that caught my attention. It's supposed to be this really precise, kind of unusual system based on these ancient, fundamental truths. Let's dig in and see what's actually inside.
Okay, so you open this thing up and bam! Right on the first page, it hits you with this wild claim. It says the book isn't just words on paper. No, it's an actual tool, one that's designed to work on you, on your mind, without you even realizing it. And they're not speaking in metaphors here, they mean it literally.
So how does it do that? Well, this is where it gets really specific. The book says there's a code, that's their word for it, woven directly into the original German text. Not the ideas, but the sentences themselves. This is the core claim, the thing that makes this whole system unique. So what does this code supposedly do?
All right, so let's unpack this idea. This coded message, what is it? The book is pretty clear about how it's all supposed to function, laying out some very specific rules.
Okay, so check this out. First, it claims this code triggers impulses from what it calls your internal storage bank. Think of it like your personal hard drive. Second, and this is a big one, it only works in the original German. They say it's so baked into the language's structure that you just can't translate it into English or anything else. And finally, the whole process is meant to be unconscious. It's not hypnotism, not coercion, it just happens while you read.
Now, before we can even get to the meditation part, we've got to grasp the core philosophy here. And it all comes down to one single, crucial distinction. A distinction that the book claims pretty much everyone, science included, has been getting wrong for a very, very long time.
So here it is. The whole system is built on splitting two ideas that we usually lump together: Geist, which is spirit, and Bewusstsein, which is consciousness. The book says, nope, not the same thing. It argues these are two totally separate parts of you. So what is the difference according to this text?
All right, first up is consciousness, or Bewusstsein. Think of this as the material you. It's your personality, your ego, your intellect, all your thoughts, your feelings, your memories. It's the part of you that's driving the car, making decisions, feeling happy or angry. It's the you that you think of as you.
But then you've got spirit, or Geist. And this is something else entirely. This isn't you at all. It's described as a tiny piece of creation itself. It's pure, impartial, non-material energy. It has no personality, no thoughts, no feelings. Its only job? To be the power source. It's the life-giving juice that lets your body and your consciousness even turn on in the first place.
So you can see the distinction, right? The spirit is like the power outlet in the wall. It just provides neutral, raw energy. The consciousness, on the other hand, is the device you plug in, your laptop, your phone. It's the thing that uses that energy to run programs, to think, to feel, to form a personality. One is the power source, the other is the user.
And in fact, the book uses this exact computer analogy. It breaks it down like this. Your physical body and brain, that's the hardware. The spirit, the Geist, that's the power supply unit, just pushing out the juice. And your consciousness, the Bewusstsein, that's all the software. The operating system, the apps, the files, everything that makes your computer your computer.
Okay, so once you have that split between spirit and consciousness, it leads to the next big and pretty controversial idea. And this one is all about the power of thought. In fact, you could say it's the engine that makes this entire psychological system run.
So here's the challenge to how we normally think. Most of us would say something like, I feel angry, and that's why I'm having angry thoughts, right? Feeling comes first? Well, this book just flips that completely on its head. It says, no way. It states, without any wiggle room, that a thought always comes first, and the feeling is just a reaction to that thought, even if the thought was totally unconscious. It presents this as an unbreakable chain of events. Step 1, a thought pops into your head. It can be conscious or not. Step 2, that thought instantly creates a matching feeling. And step 3, your body and mind react to that feeling. The implication here is huge, right? It means if you could somehow get a handle on that very first thought, you could control the entire emotional and physical reaction that follows.
So does this thought-first idea hold up in the real world? Well, the book points to a perfect example that we all know about:
the placebo effect. It's that thing that science fully admits is real, but can't quite pin down why it works. So, according to this text, here's how a placebo works. It's all about the thought. When you intensely believe that sugar pill is medicine, that powerful thought creates what the book calls an Einbildung, a really strong mental image or deep conviction. And it's that mental image created by the thought that basically tells your own unconscious mind, hey, turn on the self-healing systems. So you see, the thought came first and the physical healing followed.
Okay, so that's a lot of theory. The code, spirit versus consciousness, thoughts first. So how does this all translate into actual meditation? Well, this is where it gets really interesting, because the book covers a massive range of practices, from stuff anyone can do to things that sound, well, frankly, impossible.
Just to give you an idea of the spectrum we're talking about, on one end, you have something super simple, like a 3-minute meditation. You just sit, you count your breaths, you find some calm. Easy enough. But then, on the absolute other end of the scale, you have something called the mummification meditation. And yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like, with a claim that is just out there.
The book claims that if a master performs this specific meditation at the very moment of death, and we're talking after a lifetime of practice, it can actually preserve their physical body. It says the body stays flexible, the skin, the joints, and it just doesn't decay. No chemicals, no embalming, nothing. Just the power of the meditation itself.
And to back up this pretty wild claim, the text brings up a real-world example. A Buddhist Lama named Itagilo, who died back in 1927. The story goes that he died while in the lotus position, meditating, and told his followers to dig him up in a few decades. And, as the story is told today, his body is still said to be sitting there, largely preserved almost a century later.
So, you have to ask, right? Where does all this stuff come from? The secret code in the language, this spirit versus consciousness idea, a meditation that can supposedly mummify a body? What is the source of these teachings? Well, the book does give an answer. And I gotta tell you, it's the most mind-bending claim in the entire text.
I mean, that's the question that's been hanging over this whole thing, isn't it? When you're dealing with ideas this specific and this unusual, you can't help but wonder, where did you get this from?
And the answer the book gives is, well, it's simple, and it's direct. It says this knowledge, it isn't from Earth.
It claims this entire teaching is billions of years old, that it originally came from a being they call Nokodamedjan, described as this incredibly wise man. And then it drops the final piece of the puzzle. But nobody ever said that Nokodamedjan was an earthling. The book flat out states the entire spiritual system comes from an extraterrestrial source, something passed down over an unimaginable amount of time.
So what do you even do with that? It's a claim so big it's easy to just instantly believe it or instantly reject it. But what if we try something else? What if we just set aside the whole belief/disbelief thing for a minute? What can we learn just by looking at a system of thought that claims its roots aren't here on Earth, but out there, in the stars? What does looking at a worldview that claims to be truly alien tell us about our own? And that's really the question that this whole fascinating, strange text leaves you with.
All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a view of meditation that's, well, it's pretty different. It cuts through a lot of the usual noise and challenges just about everything you might think you know about the practice. So let's see what it has to say. So let's just start with this question. When you hear the word meditation, what comes to mind? For a lot of people, it's this whole world of confusing rituals, ancient traditions, and maybe a feeling that it's just way too complicated to even get started. But the source material for today's explainer, a text called Meditation from a Clear Sight, basically says that's all a huge misunderstanding. It offers a totally different path, one that trades the mystical for something neutral, gets rid of the gurus and puts you in charge, and replaces all that complexity with a simple, direct focus on just knowing yourself. So how does this actually work? Let's unpack this method, and we're going to start with its very, very independent philosophy. This quote from the author, Billy Eduard Albert Meier, really tells you everything you need to know about the tone here. It doesn't pull any punches, does it? It makes it crystal clear, right from the get-go, that this approach is all about you taking responsibility for yourself. It's a flat-out rejection of the idea that you need some external authority figure to explore your own mind. According to this source, meditation is simply a tool. That's it. It's not about prayer, it's not about worship. It's just a neutral practice of turning your attention inward. And the goal is incredibly straightforward, to understand yourself better so you can find some rest, some peace, and some real inner freedom. Okay, now we're getting to the real core principle. Before we talk about how to do any of this, we've got to understand the why. And it all boils down to a really simple but incredibly powerful claim about your thoughts. So here it is, the crucial point. The source argues, without any wiggle room, that every single feeling you experience is started by a thought. Every single one. Even if that thought is so lightning fast that you don't even consciously notice it happen. And this flips a really common belief on its head. See, a lot of us think we feel sad and then we start thinking sad thoughts because of it. This source says, nope, you've got it backwards. The thought always comes first, and that thought creates the feeling. The implication here is massive. If you want to get a handle on your feelings, you first have to get a handle on your thoughts. So that brings us to the really practical part. If the whole game is to control your thoughts, how on earth do you even start? Well, the source offers two incredibly basic techniques that really anyone can try. The first technique is wonderfully simple, and it only takes about 3 minutes. You just find a quiet spot, get comfortable, and pick what the source calls a meditation object. Now, this is just a neutral anchor for your mind. It could be a word like harmony, or a simple phrase, or even just a string of numbers. The only job you have is to repeat that object in your mind, over and over again. The point isn't to have a perfectly blank mind. The point is to practice putting your attention exactly where you want it. When other thoughts pop up, and trust me, they will, you just gently guide your focus back to repeating your word. It's like a workout for your concentration muscle. All right, the second technique, which the source actually suggests is the best place to start, is breath counting. Again, super simple. You sit comfortably and you use your own breath as the meditation object. You silently count 1 as you breathe in, then 2 on the next breath in, and so on for just about 3 minutes. Now here's the secret. The goal is not to get to some high number. The moment you realize, oh wait, I'm thinking about my to-do list and I've lost the count, that moment is actually a success. You just noticed. You just acknowledge it, no judgment, and you bring your attention right back, starting the count over again at 1. The real practice is in that gentle act of returning, over and over again. So you might be thinking, okay, counting my breath for 3 minutes, what's the big deal? Well, according to this source, these simple exercises are just the very first steps on a path toward a level of self-mastery that honestly starts to sound a bit like science fiction. It all starts with the benefits you might expect, right? Inner peace, harmony, less stress, and anxiety. But then the claims get bigger. The source asserts that as you develop this skill, you can extend it to your physical body. It says a trained person can control pain, regulate their own heartbeat and blood pressure, speed up healing, and eventually gain absolute control over all their body's functions. And to really illustrate the absolute peak of this potential, the source gives this pretty extreme example. It talks about something called a mummification meditation, a technique so advanced it supposedly lets a person preserve their own body after death, preventing decay. It even points to the case of a Lama Itigalo from 1927 as supposed proof. It's a pretty startling claim, but it shows just how far this path of self-mastery is said to go. But look, whether you're just aiming for a little bit of inner peace or, the most extreme claims of physical control, the source says it all comes back to this one single powerful idea. This is the philosophy that holds the whole thing together. Truthfully, I know that my thoughts are my power, and that with them I determine everything. And so this explainer really leaves us with one final and very personal question to think about. If this source is right, if your thoughts truly are your power, what are you creating with them right